Sup, you beautiful bastards. Hope you've had a fantastic Tuesday. Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show. Buckle up, hit that like button, and let's just jump into it. And the first thing we're going to talk about today is quickie news. You know, the deep dives are great so you can fully understand a story, but I feel like sometimes when we only do that, we miss out on a lot of other things. So to start off, we got the news that the fastest man in the world, Usain Bolt, could not outrun COVID. This news possibly connected to reports that last week he had a massive 34th birthday party that was maskless. Also, if you're looking at that graphic and you're like, that's not Usain Bolt, that's Kevin Hart, congratulations, you just did a better pre-post fact check than someone working at NBC News. Though, in NBC News' defense, they did replace the photo and provide an update saying a previous version of the article included an incorrect photo on some platforms due to a technical problem, to which I do want to ask, what kind of technical problem replaces the photo that you want to post with a photo of Kevin Hart? Though, I think based off of previous comments, I'm pretty sure that Kevin Hart was excited to get confused with someone over 6 foot. Then, I don't know how many times I have to say this, if you are a fan of someone, that does not make it okay to go to their house. Seems like common sense, apparently not that common. The most recent examples we've seen of this, you had YouTuber and streamer Jack Courage Dunlop, as well as longtime YouTuber Rosanna Pansino. Courage noting, this is our private home, and on top of that, there is a pandemic going on. Pansino writing a long statement where, among other things, she said, "Please stop coming to my house. We are in the middle of a global pandemic, and it's putting my family's health at risk. My mom is older and living with me. I've already lost my dad this year. Don't want to lose my mom too." Which, it feels just sad that she even has to include that last part, right? Because, you know, for some people out there, just you wanting your own privacy, your own safety, apparently that's not going to be enough. And according to her post, it wasn't just one person, saying that in 1 week alone, multiple people showed up at her home without even wearing masks, one allegedly even harassing her neighbor. And also, a thing I always want to point out here, this happens more than you are aware of. A lot of people don't even post about it because they're worried that it's going to encourage more people to do it. And insanely enough, while it is in no way the majority, you always end up seeing a number of supporters saying, hey, you put yourself out there, you say you're our friend, you're being ungrateful. No. If you agree with that argument, please seek help. You are either disconnected from reality, unaware of social norms, or you have a toxic level of entitlement. Then, in an update on the further mainstreamification of OnlyFans, you know, in the past we've talked about big YouTubers joining the platform, then Cardi B, and now their most recent massive affiliate is Bella Thorne. And reportedly, by charging $20 per month to her fans who want access to this feed, she has already in less than a week made $2 million, which just wow. And all of that coming from, according to reports, just suggestive photos, nothing explicit. So big news for the platform, but I guess a question I want to connect here maybe to people that use OnlyFans, like the actual content creators on the platform. Do you personally see this as a good thing because it's bringing more people to the platform, thus you might get in front of someone else? Right? Have you seen an uptick after these big names join the platform? Or maybe has it had no impact, or has it maybe even had a negative impact? And I'm interested in that because that'll inform me if I should be happy when I see big names joining. Because in general, everything else that I've seen regarding OnlyFans seems fantastic. It gives the creators who in many other avenues previously have been exploited and kind of profited off of to little benefit of their own. And I guess actually on that note, a question to people that aren't creating for the platform. What are your thoughts regarding OnlyFans and its rise? Then, well, a quickie story, just great news coming out of Africa. You know, a lot of people have forgotten or never knew how bad polio was. And I mean, just 24 years ago, in 1996, 75,000 African children were left paralyzed by polio. But now, 4 years after the last reported case of wild polio in northern Nigeria, the African Regional Certification Commission is expected to declare the continent polio-free. And you know, to get here, it was painful and not guaranteed. Efforts to eradicate the disease took a lot of sacrifice from workers, in particular because many of the areas that were hotspots were rebel or jihadi-held territories. Like in northern Nigeria, where Boko Haram gunned down vaccination workers, but their work still went on. So now with this recent news, efforts will be shifted from eradication of the disease to helping improve the lives of survivors. Then, in lawsuit quickie news, we have TikTok and the US government. You know how Donald Trump and his administration have threatened to ban TikTok? Well, TikTok is now officially suing the United States government over the ban, claiming that the executive order that Trump signed denies them due process under the Fifth Amendment, claiming the president hasn't cited a proper justification for banning the app, also claiming, among other things, that TikTok actually gave proof to the US government that the data of users is stored outside of China and the United States and Singapore, and adding these actions were made known to the US government during a recent US national security review of ByteDance's 2017 acquisition of a China-based company, Musical.ly, and adding they provided enormous amounts of documentation and made commitments that were more than sufficient to address any conceivable US government privacy or national security concern. Also, quick note here, if you'd like a deeper look at this, or actually a lot of the stories I cover and some I don't even get to in the PDS, you can always go to roguerocket.com or click the links in the description for usually a deeper dive. Yeah, ultimately that's where we are. Seeing as this lawsuit was just filed, we probably won't see updates very quick, but of course there might be other updates soon, including the fact that there are still other companies interested in buying TikTok. But right now, we wait and we watch. But from that, I want to share some stuff I love today, and today in and awesome, brought to you by Shine. Proper self-care is especially critical right now, and I know from personal experience that your smile can be crucial to your self-esteem. As I mentioned before, earlier this year I got some dental work that I've always wanted. And, ever since then I've been trying to improve my overall oral health, and so that is where Shine comes in. Shine is an oral care subscription with an affordable sonic toothbrush. It's a $100 value starting at just $45, and they ship you replacement brush heads every 3 months for just $5. All with a lifetime warranty, a 30-day money-back guarantee, and a seal of acceptance from the American Dental Association. The Shine Sonic Toothbrush uses next-gen sonic technology to brush teeth at 31,000 strokes per minute with 4 modes, 5 intensity levels, and 4 different heads for the perfect brushing experience. It's a great investment in your health, and you'd be supporting a minority-run business that's donating a portion of sales this month to nonprofit justice organizations. But main final point and pitch here, if you want a healthier mouth, if you want 20% off, just go to shine.com/DeFranco and use code DeFranco at checkout. And the first bit of awesome today is an awesome update. In a past TAA, we talked about Summer Games Done Quick. At that time, they had raised $400,000 for Doctors Without Borders, but with the event ending this last Sunday, they managed to raise $2.3 million. So big props and thank you to the speedrunners doing what they do well to do some good. Then, in I hope it doesn't suck awesome, we got the news that a live-action version of the Powerpuff Girls is in development for the CW. We also got 10 things Kevin Hart can't live without, as well as an inside look at Zach King's Illusion Prop Studio. We also got a trailer for the new Millie Bobby Brown movie. Enola Holmes, she plays Sherlock's teen sister. And if you want to see the full versions of everything I just shared, the secret link of the day, really anything at all, links as always are in the description down below. And then we need to talk about the situation in Wisconsin. It was easily one of the most requested stories over the past 24 hours. So on Sunday, a now viral video began circulating of police in Kenosha, Wisconsin, shooting a black man who has since been identified as 29-year-old Jacob Blake. And in this 20-second video, we see several officers standing on a sidewalk next to an SUV with multiple other people standing just feet away. We then see Blake walk around the front of the car and at least 2 officers following him with their guns drawn while numerous people can be heard yelling. Blake then opens the driver's side door of the car and one of the officers grabs the back of his shirt and appears to fire multiple rounds into his back while people around them scream. 7 shots can be heard in the video, but it's unclear how many officers fired. It is a very graphic and deeply disturbing video, and as far as what started this incident, it's still not quite clear. In a statement Sunday evening, we saw the Kenosha Police Department saying that officers were dispatched just after 5 p.m. for a domestic incident and were involved in an officer-involved shooting, with that statement going on to say that the officers provided immediate aid and that the person, who we now know as Blake, was taken to the hospital and is in serious condition. And as of recording this video, the police have not provided any more information or responded to media requests for comment. But then, what we saw, according to local news reports, at least a half-dozen witnesses said that Blake had tried to break up a fight between 2 women outside a house on the street, also saying the police had attempted to use a taser on Blake prior to the shooting, and after that, those witnesses heard gunshots ring out, with some witnesses telling reporters that Blake was unarmed, but reports noted at that time it was unclear whether he had a weapon. Now, notably, with this situation, we did have one man named Rayshawn White, who claims to be the one who filmed the video, also telling reporters that the incident first caught his attention when he heard a group of women arguing across the street from his apartment. After that, he says he saw Blake pull up in his car and tell his son, who was outside, to get in the car because he was going to go inside, with White saying he then stepped away from the window, and when he returned a few minutes later, he saw that the police were wrestling with Blake, saying that he started recording after they tased him, that he heard police yelling at Blake to drop the knife, but adding, "I didn't see any weapons in his hands, he wasn't being violent." And notably here, the governor of Wisconsin also said he had not seen any information that suggests Blake had a knife or other weapon, but noted that the issue was under investigation. Then we jump to Monday, where we see attorney Ben Crump, who's represented the families of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and others, announcing in a statement that he had been retained to represent Blake's family. Also, he appeared to back up at least some of the witness accounts, saying Blake was helping de-escalate a domestic incident where police drew their weapons and tasered him. As he was walking away to check on his children, police fired their weapons several times into his back at point-blank range. Blake's 3 sons were only a few feet away and witnessed police shoot their father, with the statement also going on to say that the officers' irresponsible, reckless, and inhumane actions nearly cost the life of a man who was simply trying to do the right thing by intervening in a domestic incident. It's a miracle he's still alive. But now, we've also seen some new information that calls some of that into question. According to news outlets that claim to have heard the audio from the call, first dispatching police to the scene, someone called and said Blake was not supposed to be at her house and that he had taken her keys and refused to give them back. Then, about a minute into the call, the dispatcher says that Blake was leaving and that the person who had called in the complaint had hung up. And then, about 5 minutes after the initial call, police said that shots had been fired. And as for Blake's status, his family and his lawyer have said that he is stable, but in a press press conference this afternoon, Crump told reporters, the medical diagnosis right now is that he is paralyzed and that it is going to take a miracle for Jacob Blake Jr. to ever walk again. With Crump also adding he is currently in surgery as we speak, still struggling to sustain his life and to hopefully become some resemblance of the man he once was. And notably, with the family speaking, we've also seen some members of his family calling for the protesters to remain peaceful. Right, and that was being said because following the shooting, yes, we saw massive protests, but we also saw riots breaking out. You know, among the things that we saw almost immediately after the incident, a crowd started to gather at the place where Blake was shot. And there, videos uploaded to social media showed protesters yelling at the police. Fires were set in the streets, some police cars were damaged. According to local reporters, later in the night, those protests escalated into violence and rioting, with some destroying and vandalizing property. City vehicles were set on fire and local businesses were vandalized, broken into, and looted, with some also being set on fire. Several reports and social media posts also claimed that some people threw bricks, Molotov cocktails, and other projectiles at police. One now viral video claims to show a police officer falling down after being hit in the head with a brick. After a while, the demonstrators started marching, with hundreds reportedly congregating and chanting outside of the Kenosha County Public Safety Building at around 10 p.m. Around the same time, the city declared a state of emergency and instituted a curfew until 7 a.m. the next day. Also, all these people at the Public Safety Building were met with police in riot gear armed with rubber bullets who reportedly tried to push them back. Those officers eventually firing tear gas to disperse the protesters. Videos also showing some people targeting garbage trucks that have been used to block traffic, breaking their windows and setting them on fire. Then around midnight, protesters moved to a courthouse where some reportedly set a fire and used spray paint, while others could be seen breaking into a nearby government building and shattering the glass doors and windows. According to reports, police demanded that the protesters disperse and then again deployed tear gas before forming a riot line and moving the people out of the area. But what we saw were both peaceful protests as well as rioting and destruction continuing into Monday. In the early afternoon, the mayor of Kenosha tried to speak to the protesters outside the Public Safety Building, but according to reports, angry protesters interrupted him, and when he was moved back into the building, some of them tried to follow him and block him from entering before they were pepper sprayed by riot police. Around the same time, Wisconsin officials announced that the National Guard had been deployed to the city to help local authorities deal with the unrest, with the county also declaring another curfew. But again, last night we saw protesters breaking that curfew, with some resorting to violence and rioting. And according to reports there, the demonstration started peacefully Monday evening with a crowd of several hundred gathering outside of the courthouse. But as the curfew neared, riot police showed up and the protesters appeared to become more and more agitated, reportedly throwing water bottles at police, setting off firecrackers and starting fires. Police responded by firing projectiles at the protesters, then deploying tear gas after they didn't disperse. The crowd eventually moving from the courthouse, and as the march split off, some people reportedly began smashing street lights, ripping down street signs, breaking car windows at a dealership, setting fires to buildings. Others also began looting stores, with some outlets reporting that store owners had been attacked and beaten by looters. One highly watched video circulating on social media also appeared to show a man whose store had been set on fire trying to fend off people with a fire extinguisher. Someone then runs up on him, starts beating him before others intervene, with that video seeming to show that man unconscious and bleeding. While all of that was happening last night, we also saw demonstrations taking place in major cities like New York, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., and Minneapolis. Protests also continuing for the second day in Madison, Wisconsin, where several hundred people reportedly marched to the Capitol. But like in Kenosha, those protests escalated as night came, with some setting dumpsters on fire, smashing windows, and breaking into stores and looting. Right, and so that's what's been going on the ground, but of course we've also seen massive responses and backlash in general, with a lot of big names responding to this incident, including Joe Biden, who said in a statement, "This calls for an immediate, full, and transparent investigation, and the officers must be held accountable," and adding, "Equal justice has not been real for Black Americans and so many others. We are at an inflection point. We must dismantle systemic racism. It is the urgent task before us." We also saw Bernice King, Martin Luther King Jr.'s daughter and the chief executive of the King Center, responding on Twitter, writing, "We shouldn't have to see one more video of a Black human being brutalized and or gunned down by police in a clear case of excessive or unwarranted force. Anybody who doesn't believe we are beyond a state of emergency is choosing to lack empathy and awareness." We also saw a ton of celebrities drawing attention to the shooting. People like Cardi B, LeBron James, Camila Cabello, with Camila also sharing local government phone numbers for people to call and demand justice, which is something we also saw the likes of Demi Lovato doing. We also saw many local leaders in Wisconsin condemning the actions of the police and calling for change. Governor Tony Evers saying in a statement, "We stand with all those who have and continue to demand justice, equity, and accountability for Black lives in our country," and adding, "We stand against excessive use of force and immediate escalation when engaging with Black Wisconsinites. I have said all along that although we must offer our empathy, equally important is our action. In the coming days, we will demand just that of elected officials in our state who have failed to recognize the racism in our state and our country for far too long." And on Monday, we saw him signing an executive order calling the Wisconsin legislature into a special session at the end of August to focus on law enforcement use of force, training, and other things. But on the other side of this, we also saw a number of people accusing those political figures of jumping to conclusions without full information. This including the president of the Kenosha Police Association, who specifically criticized Evers' remarks, saying in a statement, "The governor's statement was wholly irresponsible and not reflective of the hardworking members of the law enforcement community, not to mention the citizens of the city of Kenosha. As always, the video currently circulating does not capture all the intricacies of a highly dynamic dynamic incident. We ask that you withhold from passing judgment until all the facts are known and released. Right, and regarding the point, we don't know the whole picture, let's get more information. We saw some people on social media circulating an Associated Press report which said, online court records indicate Kenosha County prosecutors charged Blake on July 6 with sexual assault, trespassing, and disorderly conduct in connection with domestic abuse. An arrest warrant was issued the following day. The records contain no further details and do not list an attorney for Blake. And while that outlet said that it was unclear whether that case had anything to do with the shooting, local outlets have also reported that in the call dispatching police to the scene, the dispatcher did tell the officers that a warrant had been issued for Blake's arrest relating to those charges. You also had some people pointing to an article published back in 2015 by a local newspaper that reported on an incident involving a man named Jacob Blake, who was 24 at that time. Though, to be careful here, a note that I want to touch on, while the name and the age do match up, there has not been an official confirmation yet that this is the same Jacob Blake. But that article says that a Jacob Blake was charged with 1 felony count of resisting arrest causing a soft tissue injury to a police officer and 1 misdemeanor count each of carrying a concealed weapon, carrying a firearm while intoxicated, endangering safety use of a dangerous weapon, and disorderly conduct. This after Blake reportedly pulled a gun on another man at a bar, was asked to leave, and then pointed the gun through the window at patrons inside the bar before walking away. With the article going on to say that the police tracked him down and conducted a high-risk traffic stop where they ordered him to put his hands out the window of the vehicle, and adding, Blake exited the SUV and started walking toward officers and ignored commands to get down on the ground. Officers forced Blake to the ground and ordered him to put his hands behind his back. When Blake refused to comply, K9 Dozer was deployed to force the defendant into compliance. But like I said, to be safe, it's been reported that there has been no official verification that the man mentioned in the article is the same Jacob Blake. And according to those reports, those charges do not show up on the circuit court website. But regardless, we had a lot of people still pointing to the alleged incident as well as the warrant issued last month, with some of those defending police here saying that Jacob was shot while refusing to comply and potentially endangering officers' lives by opening his car door and possibly reaching for something, with people also sharing other incidents where someone was able to get to a car and then fired on police. Right, so you have people arguing here that level of force that we saw could have been warranted. But on the other side of this, you have people saying we weren't there, we don't know what happened before the video. Also, very notably, the police here were not wearing body cameras. This reportedly because while Kenosha's Common Council did pass a measure recommending their use in 2017, they've put off implementing them because they're too expensive. Right, and so because of that, you have people casting a lot of doubt on what happened leading up to this shooting, arguing that if it is true that he was unarmed or at the very least not posing a threat to the officers, even if he had those previous convictions or charges or warrants against him, that still wouldn't justify excessive force from police. And some also saying that even if he was posing some kind of potential threat, what could warrant 7 shots? Right, calling that excessive, so there was this argument that police could have been abusing their power here. Right, and that's something we saw LeBron James kind of arguing yesterday while speaking with reporters.
If you're sitting here telling me that there was no way to subdue that gentleman, or detain him, or to just before the firing of guns, then you're sitting here and you're lying to not only me, you're lying to every African American, every black person in the community.
But ultimately, that is where we are with the story right now. And as far as what happens next, we've now seen the Wisconsin Department of Justice announce in a statement that they would be investigating this incident, with that statement also saying that the involved officers have been placed on administrative leave, and adding that they will continue to review the evidence and turn a report into the prosecutor within 30 days. And from there, the prosecutor will decide whether or not to press charges against the officers. But as far as right now, we have to wait and see. And in the meantime, it seems like officials do not expect the protests and riots to die down yet. Because just as we were finishing up, we saw Governor Evers declaring a state of emergency and authorizing more National Guard members to be sent to Kenosha. And with this story, I do want to pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts here regarding this shooting? Do you feel like the video we have now all seen, that tells the full picture? Right, the argument and mindset that at the end of the day, what we ended up witnessing was a black man being shot in the back 7 times in front of his kids. Or you have the mindset that there might be something that we're missing here. Also, what are your thoughts regarding the reporting of Jacob Blake's past? Do you feel like that factors in here? Yes, no, why? And that is where I'm going to end today's show. As always, thank you for being a part of these daily dives into the news. I love your faces, and I hope that your harder today takes you to a better tomorrow.